These podcast episodes with Will and his guests provide you with insights on how you can transform your excuses into results to benefit yourself, your family, your friends, your community, society, humanity, and the universe with what Will calls the ripple effect. Will's mission is to empower 1 billion people via the ripple effect and intends that you'll become another person to add to the count, having listened to this episode.
Harry, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
So, obviously, we've just heard about some of the things that you've done, and they're quite some achievements, but I just want to talk about the impact that you've had on me. So, about 5 years ago, so in around 2015, I ended up on a discovery call with you, and I can't for the life of me, I've been racking my brains trying to work out how I ended up on the discovery call with you. So, I'd seen you speak at somewhere. It would have been a Success Resources conference of some sort, and then somehow ended up on a discovery call with you, and we went through a particular part, and I had this burning ambition and desire and drive to want to become the world's best life coach. And I was like, that's what I'm doing. I want to become the world's best life coach. That's my purpose. And you just stopped me dead, or certainly my recollection of it is you stopped me dead and saying, that's not your purpose. But because this was sort of towards the end of our call, it kind of was left on a little bit of a cliffhanger, and you suddenly left it as, well, look, that's not your purpose, but you're going to learn that soon enough, and it's going to come to you. And it was sort of this, when I reflect back on it now, it was this moment of this perfect moment of you knowing, just having absolute certainty that wasn't what it was about. But I don't know, maybe you did or didn't see something in me at that point that realized that it might be something else. And then the year later, I had this moment when I was doing my NLP training and realized that no, that wasn't about me. I don't want to become the world's best life coach. What it was really about was wanting to impact other people. That was when I set my first goal of wanting to empower 1 million people. And then a couple of years later, I set it to 1 billion. And then very recently, I've changed that to a broader vision of wanting to empower or have a vision of a world where everyone has the mindset, skills, and network to live a purposeful, inspired, and energized life. So that tiny little seed that you planted has blossomed into something which I believe is pretty cool over the last 5 years. So I just wanted to publicly, with everyone listening to this right now, say a huge thank you to you.
Awesome. And you know what? I watched your journey from afar, and I actually remember that conversation. I actually remember how you got the call with me as well. I'm going to let you know, because you remember my first decade of like 3 decades of doing what I'm doing. The first decade was predominantly all youth leadership programs. And it was a young lady who had been on a youth program who I think came in as an intern with you. And you owe her a huge debt, because she was like, hey, I'm working with this guy, he's amazing, let's do this. And I was wondering if we could have a call with you. And I said, and it was like, because of her, I went, okay, because I didn't know who you were. Then you didn't really know who I was. I think I'm not sure what happened on that side. But I remember going, she's amazing, because she's like, she really wanted you and I to connect. And then when you and I had that conversation, I remember it. And I remember the reason is, and it's good because while we're able to serve your community, now I can tell you why and all the rest of it as well. I hear lots of people saying, you know, I'm going to be the number one or the best in the world and all of this and so on. And there's 2 parts of that. Number one is, I believe everybody should strive to be the best in what they do, and let other people call them experts or, you know, the number one. I'd rather hear people say, I'm the world's best at, and then I'm listening for the transformation. And so when you said it, it was that raw passion of, you know, I want to do something without the, you know, because it's like, how do you balance ego and desire to serve? And there's a fine line between it. It's, you didn't have any shame in going, oh, I'm going to be the world's greatest at something and so on. But if you say you're the world's greatest life coach, I'm like, well, there's millions out there, and it isn't about who's the world's greatest life coach. It's what are you going to do for people? That when you tap into that, you will have fulfillment, not achievement, right? And achieving and you can become like, you know, I've seen all the people, number one business coach, number one speaker, number one this. And I'm like, beautiful. That's great. Do you believe that? Yeah, you do. Others, how could I help you? I couldn't help you by going, he's the world's number one life coach. I'm more interested in what is this person's challenge and so on, and what is this guy brilliant at doing, rather than just being number one. And you actually took it on board a lot faster. I'm sure, like you said, it was towards the end of our conversation, and then it was probably sitting there. And at one point I thought, you have to go through the journey. And then when you get to the point, like I get so many people go, I want to be Tony Robbins. I said, no, you don't. I want to speak on this, no, you don't. Are you sure? What does that actually mean to you? And when they try and get to clarify what it means, they realize two things. One, they had no idea what that meant. And the other one is, that's not what I want to do. And it's been good to see you on that journey where you're now. And the strange thing, the byproduct of it is you may get recognized by others as their number one life coach. And that's good, because it's coming from the other way. So even if I've been doing what I do for 36 years, I don't want to say I'm the world's number one this. It's not. I do say to myself, I have posters and things around, like, when you start out as something, you must go, I am the world's best at. Because no, you're not competing with everybody. You just, the old adage, we just want to get better. I don't care if I've been speaking for plus 30 years. I can always get better. I can always get better. But as long as I'm the most committed in my own eyes, that's how it should be. So there you go. That's full circle on it, like after 5 years. And so I have seen you. I've seen you on your journey. That's why when you reached out for his podcast, I was like, yep, because that's part of our journey. And it's, so one thing we learned from that conversation was it always comes down to what value can you add to humanity. And you said it's about other people, and then who you become in that journey, that's the byproduct that you can aspire to. But that needs an element of humility. Like, if I say I want to be the world's number one husband, I can tell everybody I'm the world's, that's bullshit compared to, do I believe that my wife feels that, right? And what do I have to do for my wife for me to believe that I am that, not for show? Right? Yeah. Optics and PR is very important in the world that we're in. But so when it comes down to value, that's why, like, even now on this podcast, right, we got an hour or so, I would say the same thing to you now. Let's add massive value to them. And you're doing that. You're adding value to people. I've seen some of the podcasts you've had and the interviews you've had. So let's do it. Let's like you said, we spoke about us. I'm like, let's rock and roll. Let's add value.
Fantastic. So again, thank you. And yes, it was Hayley Hamill, I remember. So special acknowledgement to Hayley. If you ever listen to this, Hayley, and I will send her the episode and make sure she gets it. So thank you very much, 100%. Hayley. Very
Hayley.
5 years old. So let's talk with servant leadership. So servant leadership is a big part of what you do. It's the first time that I heard it was when you were talking about it, and it's a huge part of what you've done for so many decades. So for people that may be unfamiliar with the term, what is it?
Yeah, I'm glad because you know what it is, when we can talk about speaking, we can talk, and someone says servant leadership, and there's still a part of it that says, people are not sure what that is. And just this whole word of servant has different connotation. Servant leadership and service leadership, the best way to put it across is I was always brought up on all the leadership training. The highest level of leadership was to serve. It still is. The highest level of leadership is to serve, literally helping other people, helping your community. And then the first level of leadership was self-leadership. So if you look at the personal world and everything that goes on with it, it's focused on how to be the better you. For what purpose? Well, it's to serve other people. In business, those that come into businesses to make money, I get it, but they never survive long term. They'll move on to the next thing. The sustainability and fulfillment comes from serving others. And service leadership is more for me what, like if someone said, who's Harry Singha, what is he now? Let's not save it to the end. My mission is simply that I want people to do good consistently and authentically. And the byproduct of that is you then take on service leadership as a lifestyle. And, I think it's really important that people understand like where I'm coming from. So I'm going to I'm going to share a little bit about me and background. I know you probably was going to ask me later, but I think now would be the right time, because then it's a good way to say what service leadership is, where I come from. So when people ask me, like, Harry, you started out so young, and I grew up in East London, and growing up with an alcoholic father who beat up myself and my mum and my siblings, I grew up in an environment of domestic violence. And I was sleeping rough on the streets of central London at the age of 10, 11, 12, 13. And I even had to leave home at the age of 15 for my own safety. So I had all of these amazing challenges and colourful childhood. But I started helping people. I say, people know that I began my professional career as a 16-year-old. And they're like, well, what got you into that? And I say pain. But if you think about it, my desire to help people was happening way back before that, because the pain I was experiencing at home when I went to school, home was pain, school was like, it was time to partay. It was like literally like that. But I used to see people that were unhappy, like we all do at school. And I used to think they must have it worse than me. So I was constantly helping other people. And even when I was sleeping rough in central London and so on, I was helping the homeless dudes. And I never thought there was anything wrong with me, because I always thought people must have it worse than me. And so I was constantly doing that, but I didn't realize that I helped people because I needed to. I didn't feel enough. I wasn't good enough unless I was helping people. It became who I was. But it took me a whole decade, from 16 to 25. When I got to 25 and I started to take care of myself, that was when I learned how to help people because I wanted to. And then it went from, not just helping East London, it's London and UK and then global. So service leadership was something that I was always doing. And, for me, there's a word, I don't have any tattoos, but someone like, if you had tattoos, what would it be? I said, I would have it on my sleeve here. And the word would be seva, S-E-V-A. And that's like the Sanskrit and also Punjabi word for, selfless service. And when we like studying the power of words and vibration, seva, service, it's all the same thing. And I believe that was my calling. That's what I was about, that, helping other people. And then my mum taught me at a really young age, because when I started doing what I was doing at an early age, I was like, I'm doing this, I'm helping other people. And my mum always said to me, help the helpers. And you know what, even now to this day in 2020, when you've got global reach with millions, I still do the same. It's like, we're on a podcast here, I'm helping a helper. The way I look at it is, if Will serves 1 million people and I can serve Will, I can lay back and watch Arsenal Football Club and play with my family. And I do with it. So it's been something that's guided me all the way through. So this is why my mission now, just like with yours, is my mission is to serve billions, to do good consistently and authentically, and therefore take on a lifestyle of service leadership. And it's what we've been teaching young people in our youth leadership programs, build up to the last day, which was all about service leadership, having some of the top people on the planet. And even the elite performers I work with now, I pick and choose the ones that I can leverage to show other people who want to become elite performers that their fulfillment comes from their service leadership, not just their game. So they're the top business people in the world, the sports stars, the pop stars. They're brilliant at their game, but what makes who they really are, it's that element of what we do for others. So yeah, there's a long way of telling you what service leadership, but essentially it's like doing good for other people, but make it your lifestyle. Make it your lifestyle. Because I about 4 or 5 years ago, I got really pissed off with seeing so many people doing good, but it was for optics. And I didn't mind that. But what I did mind was the people watching them thinking, that's the norm. Let's just do good. Let's become influencers and show people what we're doing on social media. And then the rest of the time, we're horrible individuals that really don't care about people. And the world needs, we keep saying the world needs more leaders. They need more service-oriented leaders, not just people who are talking about leadership in role term. It's about, it's not a role, it's a lifestyle. So there you go. I think I'll stop on that unless you want to go deeper.
Well, I do want to. I suppose it is going a layer deeper. So what I was really interested in, and look, we all see it, social media with the influencers and the people showing their highlight reels, and it's almost become trendy now to be helping other people. And look, I'm all for it, and I'm all for people working through and learning what they learn and then applying it and then sharing it and working on that basis. I mean, the podcast before this was Jarek Robbins, who we both know, and Learn It, Live It, Give It is his book. And I'm all for that. But like you say, certain people that are maybe they're not going as to the depths of it, and they're using elements of it that's to their own advantage. Now, you mentioned that for 10 years, your first 10 years, you did it almost out of a place of, you didn't say the words, but what I was hearing was almost like a place of, sorry, yeah?
I needed to.
Out of that you needed to rather than you wanted to. And was that born out of, I mean, what was that born out of? And then what was the difference? When did you realize, I'm feeling like I need to do this rather than wanting to do it? That's what I'm interested in.
Sure, 100%. The reason I can say it now, because you get the power of hindsight. So if you're in something in the middle of it, you really don't know until you come out of it, right? Just like while you was in that, I'm going to be the world's #1 life coach, there was nothing wrong with that. You didn't see anything wrong until you, even though I'd said it, but it wasn't until you had that realization or enlightenment, you're like, I get that, right? So the reason I needed to was what I'd already alluded to. All the challenges I had at life, it was the only thing I felt I was really good at. It was also the thing, like, you constantly got to have something where you feel worthy. So I grew up with, I had so much love for my mum, but I had a father who made me feel worthless at everything. I had every story that anybody could have or stories or excuses for any challenge I had in life. But the shift from needed to want to, I can tell you exactly what happened there. But remember, it's that needing to do something, if someone's like a comedian, if someone's like a giver and a helper, if someone is like an achiever, like so many people in the world, they've got to achieve, they've got to be the top, they've got to be the A-lister, they've got to be A grade in their exam. It's because that's their vehicle for feeling like they're enough, right? Or worthy of something. So that was my need. I became the helper. I felt something by helping other people. So the shift to when it changed was simply because at the age of 16, I was already setting up, services for young people. My career started with me going into children's homes and, schools and doing workshops. And it was by chance. And it was like, what made it for me, I was getting results. And I could tell everybody, as a 16-year-old who had no training or doing anything, I was telling everybody I was listening and I was believing. There were the two things. And the young people were responding to me, not just because I was a young person, it was because I was listening to them, and I keep telling everybody I was believing them, right? Those two things meant I didn't even have to do anything half the time. I used to pinch myself and go, what are they talking about? I remember other people going, you did this anger management workshop. And I was like, yeah, of course I did. And I was like, I used to just listen. And I used to believe, and I realized believing was a big part. And then as I grew all of these things, I just got to a point where I'm helping other people. And I'm setting up projects, I'm setting up services. And I just got so busy because I didn't actually want to take care of myself. I struggled even with relationships or anything. It's like I never stayed with a girlfriend for more than 3 months. I used to be like turned into boyfriend from hell in 3 months, because they're going to start asking me about what happened to me. And it's really important that I get across. I never told anybody what was happening to me. Even when I left at 15, social services got involved because I accidentally slipped out saying to someone, I was asking about what's it like to go to a children's home, because my father used to threaten to put me one and I'd be thinking it was a holiday, right? So when I started asking questions like that, I found if I could ask the questions going, I've got a friend who has, social services was smart. They knew they were talking about me. And then they asked my aunt, and that's what got me out, but they still didn't know the truth of what was going on with domestic violence. So I held on to all of this. And I started to get involved with people like Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, all of this, like, you know, turning 20. And I was taking the information they were giving me and I was helping other people with it. Well, I was that young kid that go up to Deepak Chopra and go, if you don't write a book on spirituality for kids, I'm going to take your stuff and write it, right? And even with Tony and all the rest of it, creating youth leadership programs for Tony, it was always a way of doing stuff that other people had and I would take it to them, right? But it wasn't until I actually did the programs. I remember being live at an event. It was Tony's event. And I remember I used to read books, highlight stuff, go and help people. I'd go to an event, learn the tools, go and help people. But at this event, you know, when you have to do the work. And I remember having an exercise where, you know, you close your eyes and you think of what you're grateful for. That's what Tony said. And I remember the time I was writing it down, close your eyes. And someone said, close your eyes. And I was like, oh shit, close my eyes, stand up, like do that. And I didn't hear properly what he said. And I thought he said, think of what's great in your life. And I remember closing my eyes and I started crying because I couldn't think of anything great. And I remember I was pissed off about that because I was an achiever. And I was like, and you had an American guy, like Tony then says, okay, find a buddy and share what you're grateful for or whatever it was, right? And I'm crying. This American guy's, okay, buddy. And I'm like, screw you, it's not okay. And I remember thinking, why can't I? And you know what it was? I'd held on to so much stuff. I was constantly helping people. 16, I was going into schools and youth centers and, you know, children's homes. By the time I was 18, I was setting up generic counseling services for young people. By the time I was 21, I was the chair of the mental health service for the whole of East London. The reason was all the therapy training I was getting, they couldn't qualify me because I was too young. So I just did the same therapy counseling courses for 6 years. You think how good I got. And then by the time I was 22, when they qualified me, I was already the chair of the mental health service in East London and running projects nationally across the UK. But I wasn't taking care of myself. So I had all of these things. And now, and the reason why, I could work all day, and the moment I got to bed, bang, I'd crash. I'd hit the pillow, go to sleep, wake up, boom, carry on helping people, carry on helping. Now I'm in a situation now thinking what's great in my life, in silence, even though there was 10,000 people, all I could do was remembering all the terrible things in my life, stuff that I hadn't told people. And I remember that when we had that meal break, I spent 90 minutes trying to write on a sheet of paper all the things that are great in my life. And still, I remember I was crying and all the rest of it, trying to get, and I said to myself, I'm not going back in that room until I fill a page. And I remember my writing getting a little bit bigger, but I then started to get to things like I'm alive and, you know, that type of stuff. And I remember someone had said something to me that I had said to other people. I said, whatever comes out, good or bad, let it come out, because it's like Deepak stuff when you're meditating. If you've got a lot of thoughts going on in your head, that's a de-stressing. It's a good thing, right? So I was like, I'll let whatever come out. So instead of just having a page where I was writing what great, I'd have another page where all the rubbish, and that was filling fast. I was having memories of things and I was filling that one in. And then I realized what I was doing here. I finally got to a page. I had a page with things that were great, that I had great in my life. And I decided, look, it's now time for me to help this client. I need to become my number one client. And I had all the tools, I had all the strategies, but because I didn't have greatness in my life, in my own mindset, I couldn't use it. So I created all these processes, put it together. And I still, to this day, I always say to people, like, you know, when I wrote my book, How to Turn Your Worst Day Best Day, I said, that book's not going to be helpful for anyone unless they can find greatness already. And that's why I always advocate that people have what I call a gratitude flood. That's what I called it. I gave myself a gratitude flood, not grateful. I put gratitude flood. And then I was able to go, okay, how do I turn my life around? I used and I created that model called LIGHT, how you turn your worst days into best days. And it was if I could give you like one thing in that light model that shifted it, it would be I forgave myself. Because all the other work and therapy was, you know, forgive your father. My father died when I was 18. I went back home, but that didn't change anything. I was still angry. I still had all those things. But the moment I was able to forgive myself, that was it. The moment I managed to turn, and you know what? Now it was a case of I was able to deal with the darkness and everything that I kept in. And to this day, when people ask me, what do I do with most of these elite performers? It's like, I coined that phrase, emotional constipation. And I always say, like, you know, if I can use the colorful language, I say, when you hold on to shit, there's a medical term for that. It's called constipation. And so many of us hold on to shit that for what reason it's too painful to share it. And therefore it just gets numbed here. So that was it. The moment I stopped becoming emotionally constipated was the moment I became free. And that freedom for me was being able to tell that 15-year-old me that what you went through was not in vain, that there is greatness in my life. And that's also because of what happened to you. And then, you know, everything about, like, look at the compassion I've got. The first person I ever told what was going along with me became my wife, right? So she's like the most important person on the planet to me. But had I not released all those suppressed emotions, I probably would have still been doing good to the naked eye, doing great, right? But now it wasn't about what other people saw me doing. And, you know, probably now's the right time to say as well that I have 3 levels of service. And I always advocate this. This is Harry Singha's 3 levels of service and contribution. I always say number 1 is what I call unconditional contribution. That's when I say, hey, Will, look, let's go and help John. And we expect nothing back from John. And we give John something, we expect nothing back from him. It's great, it's unconditional. Here's the thing though, John could come back, or John in that moment could say thank you to you and us. And believe it or not, that's sometimes you're getting payback, right? The other thing is John could come back 10 years later and be even more successful in whatever people, and he could come back and help us out, right? He can always come and pay us back. So that's one level. The second level I call stealth contribution. And stealth contribution is like me and you hear John and a challenge John has got. Imagine John is struggling to buy books for his studies. The first level, we could go and say, here you go, here's $20. It's for your books. We just want to help you. Great. Stealth would be, hey, let's put $10 each in an envelope and leave it on John's chair when he goes to the bathroom. John comes back and it's just a gift from a friend, right? John's like, and it just says, go and get your books, right? Now, what's happened is we still don't want anything back from John, and John doesn't know it was us, but we do. And stealth contribution and stealth service is really, really important. It's like things like basket brigade. Why does that have to happen? Even more now, people need to know it's called to be kind, right? Rather than we're coming up against do-gooders. Right? People have, like, since when did do-gooder become something that was negative? Right? I remember being in Canada like 20 years ago. We was out doing young kids giving hugs and handing out donuts and with T-shirts with it's called to be kind, right? So now I want you to understand stealth is important because now we're expecting nothing back from them, but it's like that ninja come and slap you on the back of the head and you don't know who it was. What we've done is hit them with service and contribution. But we as a collective have done. And it's another level. It's a little bit cooler because we did it and they don't know. And then the highest level of contribution for me is what I call universal contribution. And that's when me and you hear John talking about, you know, he's struggling with funds to get his books. And I put $20 in an envelope. I don't tell you, I don't tell anybody, and I go and leave it on that chair. Because now, who am I going to get my thank you from? Where's it going to come back from? It ain't coming back from John. It ain't coming back from you. And I'm not telling a single soul. And that's when I realized that's when you go to sleep really well at night, because, you know, that's the reason I called it universal. It's like, you know, whether you believe in God or the universe, it's people realize that I can help I can outwill and expect nothing back in return. And then a week later, a month later, someone will come and something will just happen in my life. And I don't need to know why, you know, so people can call it karma. So there's two questions you asked me. What was the shift between needing to and wanting to? Was when I became whole, that I no longer needed to, and now I wanted to. And in fact, I was doing more when I wanted to. And then the other bit was really these 3 levels of service and contribution, because you know, we talk about how to help people, but I always want to give people practical things. And if you can go with those 3 levels and do it consistently, as far as I'm concerned, then you're like you talked about Jarek. Jarek, you know, I've known him since he was born, right? It was like he has always had service and contribution as his lifestyle, above everything that he does, right? And he carried that forward as a husband, as a father, and it's still in his business. That's what he does. And that's why Rick writes a book, like, you know, I wouldn't expect anything else from it. So there you go. That's it. Like you say, you asked me a question. I'm going to go off on one unless you pull me back in.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. I know so many people will be loving to hear that. One little question about the 3 levels. So for you personally, is it optimum to have like to be doing all 3, or do you want to aim for like the elite level and all you ever do is
all 3? All three, because it's that thing. It's not like, you know, universal contribution is like is a great thing, and it's like I feel it gives you the most fulfillment. But I used to say that at an early stage, but I get great fulfillment by having a group of us. Like New Year's Day, every year on New Year's Day, if I'm in the UK, and it's quite likely because I'm a family guy, I usually want to be home for Christmas. New Year's Day, when everybody else is either drunk, hungover, or you know whatever they're doing, New Year's Day, very early in the morning, and I've been doing it like for over 30 years, I grab a bunch of people and they come with me. And I used to bring the bags of blankets and everything else and so on, but now I make them do it because it's about them creating a habit. And I usually take a small group of people and we go and hang out with the homeless guys on New Year's Day in the morning in London. And we give them blankets, we give them socks, we buy them a hot drink, and we have a conversation with them. And I just want you to understand, I could do that on my own. But when I do it with others, there's another level. It's not like one's better than the other. They're all different. Doing something and not telling everybody gives me so much peace, and knows that I've transcended any ego there. Right? I'm generally doing it because I want to. When I'm doing it with others, there's an element of you do get some paybacks here. You are replenishing yourself, but it's really cool inspiring other people to do this and genuinely not getting anything back from the person that you're helping. But even then, you know, the easiest one is to just help people randomly. You know, random acts of kindness is a great thing, right? But that's that thing where that's the first level. But if you could do random acts of kindness with a group of people and without the recipient knowing, that's stealth.
Yeah.
But I would say, you know, never look at service as a chore. It's a bit like saying, you know, what are the different ways I can make my family happy? Well, which one would you do, Harry? I thought all of them, like whichever one comes spontaneously. And then after a while, it's like, you know, some people don't go to the gym and it's like, I've got to schedule it. I have to. Other people, they can't think of their life at not going to the gym. It just becomes part of their lifestyle. That's what I'm talking about. So if you had to start with something, it's actually easier to do stuff for others and not tell anybody. Because no one's judging how much you gave or what you did. Only you can. So you decide, I'm going to smile at people. There's no one measuring you. Go, oh, was it just one smile or was it just one person? Never that. Never make it a chore. Do all of them. Because if you can do all of them, you get 3 different types of bliss, I would say. Right? So yeah, do all of them. Do all of them. But if you're doing one and you're doing 2 and you've never done the level of universal, do it every now and again. Even if I'm not, no one can measure it. That's the point. No one knows. I could be just bullshitting to you and I've never done any universal contribution. How do you know? That's the cool bit about it, right? But trust, I get people see me and they say, Harry, you do all of this. There's so much that we don't tell people. And it's important that I share people that model because, you know, for the highest level of leadership is to serve. So I've always believed the highest level of service leadership is to do good for others expect nothing back in return, and don't tell a single soul.
Love
It's
that.
it's just how it is for me.
Thank you. So you mentioned so there's the difference between, like you said, not doing it and not telling anybody. Then there's using business as a vehicle to be able to serve other people. And you also mentioned transcending ego. So I'm curious to sort of both those elements. I mean, do you still see business as a vehicle of being able to serve then because people are doing it and then there's a form of fair exchange? And then, yeah. So okay, cool.
Business for me is always, when people ask why do people go in business, I mean, you know, there's a big argument like there's too many people call themselves entrepreneurs when they're not really entrepreneurs. They're running businesses. Right? So when people go into business, business is a vehicle for you to have a lifestyle that you want. Right? So if you're like, I go into business and I want to make loads of money, after a while, you realize there's only so much money you need to take care of your bills and doing all the things. The next level is lifestyle. Once you've taken care of your bills and your lifestyle, what's left to do with your money? It comes to service, right? It really is. So even in business, serving your customers and your clients is your number one goal, right? So if we talk about the word ego within it, ego it's not all negative. Ego in the sense of that fine line between, you know, like some people go, like ego and significance go hand in hand sometimes. Someone will say, oh, I'm not interested in making lots of money. I'm just interested in helping lots of people. I've helped millions of people through well, that's still ego. So I mean, there's still ego there because everybody has a need to be significant, and it's just the vehicle that you use for it. You know, my challenge isn't with ego. My challenge is when you do things from a standpoint of significance that doesn't come from a standpoint of love as well, meaning that it's not about serving. It's all about me. So yeah, that, you know, the challenge when it comes to service and ego, the challenge with it, and like I said, there's a fine line between it, is when you're doing service for show, and that's the only reason you're doing it, and you've moved over. Like we've always been taught in all of the wealth and all the business training over the years that for every $1 you contribute, $10 come back into your corporate organization. You see companies all around the world. I have my own clients and the organizations that they will come to me and ask me to help them on their service and contribution, their philanthropy strategy, their CSR strategy. And most companies will set aside 1%, 2% of their turnover or profit to corporate social responsibility. Why? Because they need to look good. They need to look like they care. You take two companies, one provides double glazed windows, another one provides double glazed windows, but this one, for every time we invest in it, they're providing housing for orphans. I know where I'm going, right? Because we know that there was this whole drive of social entrepreneurs, but social entrepreneurs were never really given any benefits in the sense of, you know, tax rebates. They were, you either business or your business. It was like, you're not for profit or you're profit. That third way never really took off with the rest of the world or even within tax things. So people went, I've just got to survive, I'll go to the profit. So these people carried on being charity and not for profit. You've got business. You can bring the two together. You can bring the two together, but it's a difficult thing because you've got to see what people's intentions are. And the only way I know whether their intentions are pure is whether they're doing it consistently and authentically. That's why I always say, I just see lots of businesses. I see a lot like, look at this. This is what we're doing. Well, that campaign's finished. And imagine they're going, look what we're doing. We're helping women. And they're promoting about empowering women. Like even the whole Black Lives Matters and things like this and so on that's happening right now. When there's a riot happening in London, I'm one of these people that I wait till all the press and everybody's got excited. When they all leave, that's when the real people come back and do the work. Right? So that's that authenticity. People can do things because it looks good. And I actually advocate for it. because that's the stealth part. You have to do good, because if other people see you do it, but the real level is if you're doing it, and this is what you're about, do you do it consistently? That's why I advocate for companies like that. Someone like Morgan Stanley, they actually have a philanthropy team that head up their CSR team. And I met with every one of their philanthropy team in India, and each of them are like, this person's there because their brother grew up using a wheelchair. The other one there because they grew up in a slum. They all had some driving reason of why they were in that philanthropy team, not just because their roles in the organization. So if you're starting in business, I just tell everybody straight, even if you're starting, if you're scaling up, if you can bring an element of heart into your business where you've got service and contribution, choose something that's important to you, that you're passionate about, that you could do consistently. Because after a while, people will see through it anyway. So, but if they're doing good just for a show, I don't care, good's good, right? But the real people, the sustainable, my heroes are the people that I will see that, you know, when they're doing it consistently and authentically, and it's become their lifestyle, not just in their work, but in their life, and that's when they really got it. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. So on that note then, so one of the groups of people you work with, and I know that you help train speakers to become world-class speakers and share your many decades of speaking skills and experience with people. But one of the groups of people you work with are the elite in terms of people that are elite in business, elite performers, really, not the elite. I don't think it's like the Illuminati or something, but elite performers. So elite performers, business people, people in the arts, sports people. And a lot of people might say, well, why would they need to go and speak with Harry? You know, they're at the top of their game. But you said something, I think, just before we went live, which I think was really, really key, in that there's a big difference between achievement and fulfillment.
Yeah, 100%. And I usually get asked two questions. There's some people that will go, what can you do with people who, you know, elite, and even the ultra elite? I just believe ultra elite are the ones that then get celebrity status outside of their own world, right? And then the other question is, it's like, the first one, what can you do for them? And then the other one is, why do you work with it? Because Harry, you're the service leader. You're like the altruistic. Why are you working with people who are? And I always want to answer both of those questions together. And the first one I'll answer is, why would I choose to now focus my energy on because I can only work with one or two elite clients over a year because of the amount of work I do with them. But I still, you know, focus my energy on serving that group because this is my selfish part. I want to leverage them. And it's what we just spoke about already, just literally now. I decided that I want billions of people to do good consistently and authentically. And I thought, well, I need to leverage the people who got platforms. I could go to YouTube and social media influence, but I thought a lot of people want to be that. They just want to be famous. But then I thought, hang on, I've always believed that business, sports and arts, those people are the people that influence us the most. If a professional footballer said do something when my son was a child, he would do whatever that footballer told him, right? I would have done as a kid. And if you're in the business world, you're aspiring, but what are the top people in business? What are they doing? Because you want to become, we always say you want to become like people like you or how you'd like to be, right? So I figured if I can support and add value to elite performers, I want something back from that. And what I want to do is leverage their platform, and leverage their platforms by showing other people that these elite performers, they got to that level of elite. You know, we have this typical idea of what success is, you know, finances, fame, you know, now we call it like fans, you get awards, you get all of these things. They've got it. And people want to do that. And I'm really passionate about showing other people who want to reach their levels of achievement by showing them that there's something else about them. And that something about them is that they are, especially the ones that are doing it, that they're consistently and authentically serving. I make them showcase that. Because here's the thing, most elite performers don't really like talking about the stuff that they do when they're doing good. Believe it or not, they just want to do it. They just do it quietly because they got all the significance and fame from that. Many of them just want to stay quiet, and they're giving billions away in money, but they don't tell you what they're. I remember when I was on a stage with Lord Sugar. It was at an event, me and Lord Sugar on a stage, and I was interviewing him and so on. And I was told we can't talk about The Apprentice, and someone was attacking him for not having a charity or not. And I was like, I wanted to say, are you mad? You don't know what he does behind the scenes. The Apprentice bit is all a show of how bad I am, right? So I want you to understand is that's the reason I took that market was I can leverage that market to do good for loads of people. What do they need? It's the same thing. Many of them, I was blessed to start getting into that market where I could help them become greater public speakers. That was what bringing my strength as a speaker coach. And then I found, and this is where it goes full circle in our concept, I found so many of them to be emotionally constipated. And what that meant was they were suffering in silence. They literally were like doing really great to the rest of the world, and the business was great, or and I call it their game, whether their game was business or whether it was sports or whether it was arts. They worked out how to get to the pinnacle of their game. And that was like, there was a science and there was a method to it. But there's a few of them that would get to a point when they go, is this it? So people know that. Look at in the world, like you've got like Robin Williams, you've got all the artists, the comedians, the actors, the pop stars. Are there a few of them that are depressed, taking their own lives? Robin Williams hung himself because he thought he wasn't funny anymore. People don't understand. I actually studied and started reading. Why did these people actually take their lives? Look at Amy Winehouse. Look at all of these people in the arts. Look at sports. Look at sports. The moment a footballer tends to finish their career, they're either going to management coaching or they get depressed because that thing that was giving them everything. But there are people in the game, and this is the point, in the game who are asking themselves, is this it? Even like, and it's not just business, someone that spent all their life training and studying to become a doctor, and now they're a doctor at the top of the game, making a difference, saving lives. They go home and go, did I become a doctor because my parents wanted to become a doctor? I think so. Why do I feel like this is not it? I can't just leave this because I am now the consultant, the #1 consultant on the planet. But what they really wanted to do was write children's books or something. And people are like, what? So it's that there are three things. One, they're either emotionally constipated. The other one is that they got this thing burning inside them for so long that they think it's not what's the word I'm looking for? It's not resonating with what they're doing right now. And they try and apply all the rules of achievement, the science, to fulfillment. And it's not the case. Fulfillment's an art. So this is where giving the people who have been perceived as got everything and then giving them actually what is everything is the fulfillment. Like there's so many studies on people who are on their last few weeks of their life. It would never be about all the things. It would be like, it comes back to what I said to my kids, what I said to my wife, what I did, all of the core message. So this is why, for me, that's the program when I created it was find your voice and serve with more impact. My job is to help those elite performers find their voice, whether it's something that's been suppressed and therefore they got something to say, or whether it's is this it? Find who you really are beyond your game. And then, obviously, speaking is a massive, massive asset to anybody that's at the top of their game because people are pulling at you. Tell us that. And they're like, no, I don't like speaking in front of people. And I see so many top business owners and even like one of my clients who I can't share some of my clients because we have like a non-disclosure agreements. But he's one of the top sports people on the planet. And he was constantly saying to people, I'm not a speaker. That was my trigger going, let's go get this guy. Because people avoid things if they have a fear of speaking. right? Or this anxiety about speaking, even if they're elite performers. There are people who are elite performers that are really, really struggling about speaking in public. So that's a little flavor of, you know, they're human beings. Let's get really clear. Like, I'm an elite performer when it comes to speaking and helping and doing these type of things as service leader, but I'm a human being, you know. We still have things. We always, you know, when someone says you can have it all, I believe so. But having it all the time is a myth. In fact, I remember being introduced on a stage one day, and I went to an event, and they said, this next guy, he does what he wants, where he wants, whenever he wants. And I came on the stage and I said to everybody, who likes the sound of that? And then they went, yeah. And I went, it's bullshit. I'm a parent. So I can't do what I want when I want. My kids or my wife determine what I do. I said, what I do, the real bit was I don't do what I don't want. And I don't want to. And then, so it is that, you know, elite performers, I believe elite performers, to me, the person that's got it all is when they've got this pathway to success, and that's the achievement, and they've married it and balanced it perfectly with the art of fulfillment. And in that way, they're at the top of their game, but they're also who they really want to be. And that's the bit where their core legacy. The core legacy is when you bring your game to everything you do. You bring your core to everything you do. So that's it. You're not the first person. People say, well, what the hell would elite performers need? What we all need. They just mastered the art. They mastered the science of achievement, and they can share that pathway for other people. But some of them are struggling because they haven't mastered the art of fulfillment. That's one of the big things. Yeah.
So in terms of some practical things for people that are listening to this right now, and there's two I'm going to ask them, hopefully we can go into both of them time permitting. So if people are listening to this right now and they if they feel like they've got this message and they want to share it, and they're having some of these fears around speaking, what would be one practical tip that you would give to someone that says that are saying that they're fearful of speaking, and whether that's on video or to a public audience? What's something practical that people can do to help to overcome that?
Good. Now we can add even more value to your audience, right? So first and foremost, I want people to be clear that as a speaker coach, as someone that's predominant in the industry, I actually say to people that there's no such thing as fear of public speaking. And that tends to jar a few people. And then I say to people that, you know, obviously I'll get loads of people challenge me. Are you kidding me? Look at me. It's like, and then someone will go, hey, the academics, there's a label for fear of public speaking. It's called, and it's like speaking phobia. It's called a phobia, right? It's called glossophobia. It's actually been given phobia status. So I tend to think, okay, what's the best way to explain this to people without science and academia coming and try and prove me otherwise? And the way I say it is the reason why I don't believe that it's fear of public speaking, I think it's a misdiagnosis. And when I say a misdiagnosis is, I actually believe it's a fear of shame, fear of public shaming, rather than a fear of public speaking. And the moment I say it, people will like nod their heads and they go, I get that. Here's the challenge. If you, Will, said to me, Harry, I don't like going to hospitals. I go, oh. But if we went to a hospital, you'd go in there, but you don't really like it. You just don't particularly like it. And I don't know anybody that likes hospitals. That would be another challenge. But imagine most of us, if we don't like going to hospital. But if you said to me, Harry, I have a phobia of hospitals, that means the moment I take you to a hospital, you will start shaking, right? You literally will physiologically take over. And your fear kicks in, true? And then I've got to treat that phobia, that thing. So now I've got to treat you in relation to this thing about hospitals. So here's the problem. If we say we have a phobia when it comes to fear of public speaking, you get treated for something different. If you were saying, I've got fear of public shaming, because now it's an internal thing, not about all is public. And if you think it's a fear of public shaming, I say there are so many people on the planet that will say, do you have any challenge going to speak on a stage? No. Have you got anything to talk about? Nope, but I could go and do it. And they're like, people are like, oh man, they're just so confident. No, what it is they don't have a fear of public shaming. Anyone that has a fear of public shaming means that they've maybe experienced rejection, they've experienced that not being loved, they've experienced that not being good enough, and they remember it, and it's the biggest fear they've got in their mind. So, well, what do you treat them with? Do you treat them with everything? No. Deal with what that was. You can go into that. But I really say to people, it's if you know what the actual challenge is, you treat it in the correct way. Get the right diagnosis, get the right treatment. So the moment I can just tell people it's a fear of public shaming, and I'll say there's probably one or two things in your life where really, and this is when I come back to how do you turn your worst days into the best days, they've emotionally suppressed that thing there. They think it's the speaking. It's not. Because they're comfortable speaking with 2 or 3 people. They're a group when it's family and everybody they know and whatever and so on. And it's usually people that I don't know. And all of these other things come into mind. But it's the reason why I'm so passionate about, I want you to understand is this, is remember I told you everything that went on with me and my father. I always say to people that one of the ways that my father used to curse me in a Punjabi word, he used to call me Bear Show. And Bear Sharm, I remember when he said it, my mum would go, oh, don't say that, you can't say that. And Bear Sharm actually translates into, you got no shame. And apparently in the Punjabi world, in Asian world, if you say to someone, Bear Sharm, you got no shame, shame is a big thing in certain cultures, right? I was a kid that, what do you mean I ain't got no shame? And then I used to realize this was a bad thing. But I agreed with him because it felt like I didn't care. I could care less what would happen as long as I was protecting my mum. But roll on so many years, I'm now the guy that teaches speakers to be Bear Sharm. And what that means is you go onto that stage, not you don't care. You don't care what anybody thinks about you. You really have something so valuable to give that if it saves one person's life and someone else doesn't like my hairstyle or what I'm wearing, that's okay. I'm all right with that, right? And so then you can do some work, and there's lots of practical work you can do about how you accept criticism, how you accept judgment. You can do all of that work, but don't blame it on public speaking. And so that's the deepest part. And then there are so many practical things you can do with state management and all of those things, but they're not necessary. When you've got a big enough why, you don't give a shit. You become Bear Sharm. So that's why I always say it really doesn't matter. If you've got something of value that you're really helping people and serving, so what if someone thinks you've got like the colour of your eyes are wrong, your hair's out of shape, or people, oh, I'm not qualified. Well, get qualified. It's not a fear of public speaking, it's your fear of maybe I'm not good enough, right?
Yeah.
So find out what it is, deal with it, treat it, that's how it should be.
Love that. Thank you so much. And so valuable. I think it's, and when people do turn that around on themselves and they see it like that, then it does make it quite easy. Like you see, all the practical stuff, the state management, all those different things that you either don't need them or they just enhance your speaking ability anyway, so that you can go and live.
100%. It's like Ryan Tuckwood, one of my clients. He's a super successful business guy in Australia, sales company. His company, like we have Dragons Den and they have shark tanks and so on. When he went on the shark one, 3 sharks invested in his company. But his business partner would do all the speaking. Ryan would leave it because he had that. Oh, no, it's not me. I'm not good enough. So, but the moment he told me about it, and you realize you don't have to go for years and years in it. One short conversation, and he's gone from, okay, I'll give that a go. He went from missing out on opportunities to now seeking opportunities. And literally, like within a year, I think he was on the stage with Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street. Not only was he speaking, he was hosting us. It's like you can't get enough of it for him now. And it's just that thing where he could have gone on that I've got a fear of public speaking and let me go and do this, that. But he just dealt with one little thing, bang, done. Because if you know what the diagnosis is, it's like me coming to you and saying, hey, I've got an infection. The doctor will not give you antibiotics because they want to know whether you've got an infection or a virus. If you've got a virus, you're not having antibiotics. And too many of us are self-prescribing. Too many people are giving themselves the antibiotic. Oh, I've never said it like that. Too many people are giving themselves the antibiotic for fear of public speaking when it's not that. It's a virus, but maybe the virus is not a good metaphor at this current time, right?
Not at this
there
point,
you go.
I think everyone's had their fair share of viruses this year. So one other thing that I'd love to ask, maybe the last question that we can ask, is around fulfillment then. So a practical, if people are feeling right now, and whether it's that they're a high performer, an elite performer, and they're feeling unfulfilled, or maybe the opposite. Maybe things haven't been going the way that they want, and they've got to a point where they're just like, "Oh, is this it? Like, I'm really not feeling it, and I really want to make some change." What's a practical tip or two of how people can start tapping into?
Okay, I'm also conscious of time, so I will give you. Let's give it so it's. Rather than me just touching on a high level, let's give something practical. One part is the more you can find out what, we talked about, people, I don't know what your audience does, but when you start understanding your values, i.e. the things that are most important to you, and then you can start finding out what order they're in and so on, the disconnect when you're doing what you're good at versus feeling that. First of all, you have to understand what's important to you. You also have to understand who are you at your core. When you understand that, so if I was to take like a professional footballer, and at their core is all about love, right? Or all about, harmony and bringing people together. The moment that footballer, he or she brings in this awareness, it's all about love and bringing people together, they could bring that into their game. They could bring that to their team, right? So this is where you start to take who you are at your core and start implementing in every area of your life. You can go shopping. I don't know if people still go shopping, but the calls you have, the interactions you could have, if you was to able to know who you are at your core and bring it to every area of your life, you start to have fulfillment. So you'll go, right, I went to work, I was a doctor, I did this, that, and the other, but I was able to imagine happiness, that they could bring joy to their surgery. They would leave a slightly more fulfilled. That's one thing. That you actually start to find who you are at your core and bring that into your game, whatever you're doing. Right? Now, the second thing I'll give you is this. If you want fulfillment, you need to up your game when it comes to service and contribution. And the other part is we get fulfillment when we're growing and giving. Right? So in the most simplest terms, if you're not learning a new language, if you're not stretching yourself, if you're not learning a new skill, then you're not going to feel fulfillment. Right? So it's not like, oh my gosh, business is struggling, I now need to learn how to do Facebook advertising. I'm not on about that. I'm talking about learning things that you want to learn. So if you're like, I always wanted to learn another language, do it. I don't care if it takes you a whole year. Start getting a book, start doing those, because so then you feel there's something about you growing. But if you're growing and giving, you got the prescription for fulfillment. How you grow and how you give, that's what you need a little bit more work on rather than just doing it for the sake of doing it. So that's that long. Tell them to watch this video again or listen to this podcast again if they want to know a bit about how and so on. Right? So those would be my bits on fulfillment, is really helping people find out what they are at their core, bring that to every area of their life. And also the highest level of fulfillment is when you can put it into an organization or systems that allow you to keep giving your gift beyond your lifetime. It's for generations to come. That's when you got it. Yeah, that's it. There's a legacy. Too many people think of legacy as like a financial legacy, and they spend a lot of time on, their legacy planning, meaning making sure their grandchildren don't screw up their business and their finances, right? I'm talking about legacy that, if my legacy is be good authentically and consistently, and I've created products and programs for it, the legacy for me is how can I get that message keep going for years and years and decades and generations to come. That's fulfillment. Knowing, well, most of the elite performers, and when people say, what's their deepest desire? Their deepest desire is to serve with more impact. People that are serving at the high, you ask me, what would I want to do? I want to serve more. And they're like, are you kidding me? Nope. The person who loves their wife or their husband or their partner, and it looks like they love them more than anybody else does, ask them what they want. They want to love them even more. That's it.
Love that.
That's like probably a good way.
Thank you so much. And what a great thing to finish on, legacy, and being able to have that legacy and being able to have that impact, and having a bigger impact starts with having an impact, right? So starting that however small that level of contribution might be. I mean, I've shared many times the whole Make It Happen company that we run, coaching training company now, started because I posted a quote on social media, 1 quote a day, that went to 2 a day, that then went to creating a website, creating a blog, and so on and so forth, and expanded out, and that element of contribution of wanting to do that. So to start and make that difference, which people could do today, you know. So Harry, I'm so grateful for you being on the show. Thank you so much. It's been great to catch up after 5 years and be able to do that. If people want to find out more about you, where can they find you and learn more?
Sure. I mean, as long as they get my name right and how it's spelled Singer, as in the beer, not as in singer, as in sing a song. Just Google my name, they'll find it. If speaker training, it's all under World Class Speakers Academy. But for the elite performers or anybody that wants to find your voice and serve with more impact, although I'm working with elite performers, I've put many things in place to help other people. Right? So that is my mission. They'll find me. Just Google the name; it will be there. Those that need to reach out those that need to reach out, they will reach out. They'll find a way.
Fantastic. Well, Harry, thanks again. Thank you very much, and thank you for listening. Certainly give us a review and go and check out Harry. Find out more about what he's up to, because he's an incredible guy doing incredible things. Once again, Harry, thank you so much, and until next time, make it happen.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Make It Happen with Will Polston podcast. Make sure you join Will's free Facebook group, the Make It Happen community. Please support the show by subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or Google Play. Share this episode with at least one friend you think would benefit from it, and give Will a 5-star review wherever you download your podcasts. Until next time, make it happen.